Ah, smart water. Pure, crisp taste.
That's really good water.
It's the kind of water that says, I have my life together.
I do feel more sophisticated.
Smart water. For those with a taste for taste. Grab yours today.
Mic check. 1, 2. Are we recording? Hi, I'm Michelle Bernstein, an award-winning chef, restaurateur, and mom. I have a lot on my plate, including my psoriatic arthritis symptoms. That's why I was prescribed Cosentyx. It helps me move better.
Cosentyx secukinumab is prescribed for people 2 years of age and older with active psoriatic arthritis. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like tuberculosis or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some are fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, had a vaccine or plan to, or if inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur. Learn more at 1-844-COSENTYX or Cosentyx.com.
Ask your rheumatologist about Cosentyx.
This is Let the Record Show, using common sense. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist Eric Levine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. Joining us now is our good friend, the eminent Attorney General of the great state of Arkansas, Tim Griffin. Tim is just absolutely a fantastic guy, a former member of Congress, former lieutenant governor of the great state of Arkansas, currently the Attorney General, a very distinguished military guy, a wonderful person, and he's now the chair of a wonderful group called Protecting Americans Action Fund. It's an important group. Why? Because there's been an effort by left-wing progressives to undermine public safety and law and order in this country. And this has been funded by various foundations, funded by George Soros' Open Society. This is a threat to not just quality of life, but for public safety for every person who lives in the United States. If you don't have effective prosecutors who zealously enforce the law and do not let criminals off the hook, then we're in serious trouble. And the game plan has been, if they couldn't control the legislatures and get out of jail free legislation through the legislature, then they would undermine the integrity of the prosecutorial function. Mr. Attorney General, welcome to Let the Record Show. Tell us about what you're doing to make America safe again.
Well, let me just say, I was with y'all, I guess, a little over about a week ago, and I just met you the one time, but I really connected with y'all. I know we talk a little differently, but I had a great time, and you've really got some great people working for the right cause. I know it's an uphill battle in some parts of the country, but I really appreciate y'all having me on. And this is not, just to be clear, as you said, this is not an Arkansas issue or a New York issue. This is national. This is all over the place. So the bottom line is this. A few years ago, a number of wise people were looking at the landscape politically, and they noticed that, hey, there are a lot of groups working to elect and defeat members of Congress, senators, governors, sort of the top of the ballot races. But there was a lot of activity going on, and a lot of it not good, in down ballot races that involved not only school boards, city councils, things like that, but of particular import were the prosecuting attorney level. So these are down ballot races that are where the prosecutors are elected. They're critically important because these are the people that make the charging decisions. And what we noticed is the people that came before me, in particular, that started Protecting Americans Action Fund, they noticed that, wait a minute, the Soros folks are really investing in these prosecutor races.
Tens of millions of dollars.
Tens of millions of dollars. And why are they doing it? Well, they're doing it because it's a heck of a lot cheaper for them to have an impact at the prosecuting attorney level than in a Senate race or governor's race or whatever. And as you said, they couldn't change the law through legislation because they can't win the elections necessary to make those changes. So what they saw is an opening. If they could get progressives elected to these prosecutorial seats, they wouldn't have to spend much money. And once they get there, they have this broad prosecutorial discretion that is normally just used to decide, okay, do we prioritize this or do we prioritize that? But in the case of some of these extremists, what they were doing is basically saying, I'm not going to enforce the law.
And we have Alvin Bragg here in New York as a perfect example.
Yeah, so you're well aware of the power of these slots, even though they're, quote, down ballot, and how they can effectively, without changing the law, they can have the result as if you change the law because they ignore it. And so a lot of people on the right side of things said, wait a minute, this is an area where no one on our side is taking a stand and getting involved in the races. And that's where Protecting Americans Action Fund came from. The first chairman was Jason Miyares, the Attorney General of Virginia.
Wonderful guy. Wonderful guy.
He's an excellent guy. They had a huge impact in a number of races around the country. And these aren't just in blue states. In some red states where there's an urban area, you have these same fights. And I just took over as chair earlier this year. So the bottom line is we keep an eye on these elected prosecutor races around the country, and we either look for people that are doing a good job that we want to help stay in office, or basically doing the sometimes boring, basic blocking and tackling of just being a good prosecutor. And then we see others that are wacko, progressives that we want to defeat, and we've been very effective at that. So that's the whole point of Protecting Americans Action Fund, to step into this particular area and stay focused on the elected prosecutors. And we, so in many cases, we could be in traditionally blue places. Like right now, we've got a few races on our radar that are in Pennsylvania, on the East Coast. There's one in Virginia, a couple in New York that we're watching. But make no mistake about it, we're watching races in Texas. We're watching them in Arizona, Florida, all over. There are races of interest to us. It's a little early in the election cycle for most of these races because most of them are going to be 2026. So we're getting a sense of who is going to be running against whom, and but that's the whole point of it. So what we do basically is we raise money to educate the voters, and we really focus, Judge and y'all, on the key issue of why does it even matter, right? I mean, that's usually what we're fighting is people think, well, I mean, a prosecutor's a prosecutor, right? But we've learned, and you've seen with Bragg and others where you are, that a prosecutor is not necessarily a prosecutor. And who you pick for these very important slots is directly related to your quality of life and your safety.
Eric.
So I would have to say, I mean, I think it's a great organization. Jason's a good friend, and when we met last week, it was a very, very impressive meeting, and it's something that can be achieved. We've seen it in Philadelphia, we've seen it in Los Angeles, we've seen it in San Francisco. But I think one thing this can't succeed unless minority communities are on board, because they're the communities most affected by crime. Wealthy whites or just wealthy individuals in general, they can buy themselves above it. They can move, they can find other communities. But the poor, who unfortunately are disproportionately minority groups, they don't have that luxury. They're in these communities. So how do you get the message to them? How do you get the message out to minorities? How do you get them on board with what you're trying to achieve?
Yeah, well, they're a critical part of the coalition because we need everybody who's engaged in the voting process, people that actually go pull levers. We need all of those people to become aware. So, as I've said with y'all, and as I say all the time, which is true, has the added benefit of being true, if you're not safe, you're not free. And the people that are the least safe are the least free. If you take a different road because you are scared of crime, if you drive an extra 5 miles because the gas station you passed scared you, you weren't free in those moments to do what you needed to do. And so you're right. Everybody's impacted, but the neighborhoods, the people that are hit hardest by the crime have a vested interest, unlike many other communities, the highest vested interest, because many of them are dealing with crime on the way to work, on the way to school, on the way home, right in front of their house, bullets through the window, all of that stuff. So how do we engage them? Well, what I would say is the stuff the ads we run, the messaging that we use, the facts that we convey, they are equally applicable to everyone. And it's a simple message about the straightforward consequences of electing someone who releases dangerous criminals versus one who doesn't, someone who promotes a culture of following the law, doing what you ought to do, rule following, versus one who is okay with chaos. And whether you live in a high-income neighborhood or whether you live on the other side of town, the messaging that we use, the facts that we use, everybody should have an interest in them.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Mr. Turnchild, yeah. I want to give Jesse a chance to talk to you. Jesse, I just want you to know, at the breakfast that we had last week, your district attorney, who you're responsible for electing, Ray Tierney, a great law and order, former federal prosecutor, former assistant district attorney, a great leader bringing law and order to Suffolk County, was at that breakfast with Attorney General Griffin. Jesse, your conversation with the Attorney General.
Mr. Attorney General, thank you so much. First, let me begin by thanking you for your service as a member of the Army National Guard for Arkansas. Certainly, as a truly a professional prosecutor, having served as a U.S. attorney in Eastern District, and congratulate you for an 85% victory rate in the 2024 elections in these counties. As I was listening to you, I think that, and I appreciate what Judge Weinberg has just said about our Attorney General, because you're absolutely correct, and we've felt that here in Suffolk County, that these prosecutors, local prosecutors, the downstate, the down ballot prosecutors, are the ones who truly make you can truly have a difference in making you feel safe and having crime rates going down. We've had, unlike yourself and District Attorney Ray Tierney, who are professionals in this business, we've had politicians, and both offices in Suffolk County have prosecuted, have elected prosecutors that have been more political than anything else, and we straighten that way out. I think that outside of the Washington, D.C., the secondary epicenter of lawfare is here in the state of New York, in the city of New York. And we've seen that, unfold over the last 6 or 7 years, especially when we see individuals like George Soros funding and trying to pick off prosecutors in our state and such, that we have to protect our district attorneys like Ray Tierney and our neighbor.
And Donnelly in Nassau County.
In Nassau County.
And we lost a good one upstate in Albany with David Soros.
Yep, exactly. But what I find interesting is looking through your record that some of the groups that you've been involved with, Pathway to Freedom, which is a faith-based prison mysteries, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, of course, the Florida Christian Home for Unwed Mothers. You can see how you've gotten deep right there on the ground level of our neighborhoods and our communities, and so you are firsthand understand how the broken window syndrome is critical to allowing us to feel safe and free. And I guess that what I want to delve into, is we have some limited time here, is that you just secured a $100,000 grant to fight human trafficking. Now, you're in Arkansas and such. Yes. But that truly demonstrates that the failures of the Biden administrations and the failures of the Democratic administrations that have left us with open borders truly has made every town a border town. Can you speak about how your work in community groups has led to you being in your prosecutorial pursuits, and of course with this human trafficking that you're fighting in Arkansas?
Sure. Well, no, I appreciate the question, and you mentioned broken windows theory, and that's really, really important to this conversation because it allows me to talk a little bit about the contrast and approach between progressives and sort of law and order prosecutors. So progressives, what they want to convince you of is that the only crime that matters in terms of prosecution are the really what they call serious ones, like violent crime, rape, murder, and that all other crimes should either be a lower priority or a no priority, whether it be smash and grab, drag racing, graffiti, all these different things. Here's what they miss. And you mentioned broken windows theory, which was James Q. Wilson's idea. He used to be a professor at Princeton. It was used in the 90s by Mayor Giuliani and others to clean up New York and other communities around the country. And what it basically says is the opposite of what the progressives say, which is it's not about the individual crime. It's about the culture you create. You either create a culture where you allow a lot of crimes to persist and thrive, or you go after all crimes, from the small to the large, because it's not about the individual crime. It's about creating a culture where people respect the rules regardless of the rules. And this is like when you raise your kids. I got 3 young kids. And you either create in the home an atmosphere where they get away with basically everything, and you get more of that, or you create an atmosphere, same in schools, of discipline, right? And the people, to your point, the people that bear the brunt of the drag racing, the speeding, the lower quality of life, the graffiti, all this, are a lot of these communities that are lower income that live with this stuff day in and day out. And I've seen the impacts of a lot of this working with Pathway to Freedom, which, as you mentioned, is a Christian prison ministry, working with even something called Our House, which is a homeless shelter for for the working homeless in Little Rock. But when you reach out directly to the community and listen to them, you see that this is something everybody wants. Everybody, regardless of income, they want to come home to a neighborhood where they can walk and not be shot. They want to know that they're not going to hear drag racing all throughout the day and have people riding dirt bikes and things, four-wheelers, up and down urban city streets. All of that degrades the quality of life and sends a message that you live in an anarchical culture. And that's where the progressives get it wrong. They try to just act like if they deal with murder, then nothing else matters, that sort of thing. And as you saw with all the smash and grabs that made YouTube and everything else in California and San Francisco in particular, that was what we saw. But smash and grab and stealing, that was only one thing of a broader problem of just lawlessness, right? It's a culture of the rule of law, or you have a lawless culture. So I have worked really hard. We have a lot of prosecutors that are elected separate from me, but I've done as AG. I'm not the head prosecutor, but I've worked really hard to send a message that we're going to work with the legislature, with the prosecutors, certainly with my office, to target every community, regardless of income, regardless of who that community supports, regardless of who lives there, regardless of what they look like. Everybody deserves to be free, which means they all deserve to be safe.
Tim, we have to sign off. I'm getting the signal from the booth. Please tell our listeners how they can help support Protecting Americans Action Fund and protect their communities. How do they do that?
Great. Well, just go to our website would be the number one thing to do. And it's enforcethelaw.us. Enforcethelaw.us. And all the info will be right there on the website. We'd love to have your financial help. We'd love to have you follow us and sign up for our emails and all that stuff. And we've already been effective. It's changed neighborhoods and communities, and we appreciate your time. And we'll be dining in New York soon, my friend.
Well, on behalf of Chairman Garcia, Eric Levine, and myself, it's been an honor and privilege to have the Attorney General of the great state of Arkansas, our good friend Tim Griffin, a great public servant, a great patriot, somebody who truly cares about America and protecting the American people. Tim, good talking to you. Thank you for being on the show.
Yes, thank you, Tim.
And we look forward to seeing you again real soon.
God bless y'all.
Thank
Take care.
you.
Call me anytime. Bye-bye.
Thank you.